I'm Victoria from Biblio Lifestyle, and you're listening to the Reader's Couch podcast, the show that will help you bridge the gap between living a full and busy life to one where you're reading, learning new things, and having fun. Today on the couch, I'm so excited to welcome author Evelyn Skye to talk about her adult debut novel, The 100 Loves of Juliet. The 100 Loves of Juliet is a Shakespeare-inspired fantasy romance that's a modern-day reimagining of Romeo and Juliet. In the novel, a woman discovers that she is part of a legendary love story that spans different lives, years, and continents. Now, in this episode, Evelyn and I talk about her new adult book and the inspiration behind the story. We also talk about her new crossover novel, which is soon to be a Netflix film. We learn more about her writing and reading life, plus we get some great book recommendations. But before we get into the episode, please take a quick second and leave the podcast a 5-star rating and review, because it's a great way to show your support. It helps us find new listeners, opens up new opportunities for the show, and it helps keep me and the podcast going. So thanks in advance. And now on to the episode with author Evelyn Skye. Hi readers, welcome again to the Reader's Couch. I'm your host, Victoria Wood, and here on the couch with me to talk about her adult debut novel, The 100 Loves of Juliet, is author Evelyn Skye. Hi Evelyn, welcome to the Reader's Couch.
Thank you so much for having me, Victoria.
Yay, I'm so excited to have you here. Can't wait to talk about The 100 Loves of Juliet. But I always want to know, how are my authors feeling? I know you've written books before, but this is your adult debut. How are you feeling? How excited are you?
I am so excited. This book is everything to me. It's my entire heart and soul. And it's just, this is my 8th book, so it should feel like old hat. I think that's the saying by this point. But no, every new book feels different. And this one, especially just being adult fiction and being something I've never done before, I'm a debut all over again.
Yes, you are. But I feel you did an amazing job with this one. So really excited to dive in. But I want you to give us your elevator pitch. Tell us about your book, The 100 Loves of Juliet, and what can readers expect when they pick up a copy?
So The 100 Loves of Juliet is contemporary fiction, and it's about a woman, Helene, who is fleeing a disastrous marriage, and she runs away to Alaska where she's going to write her novel, the one that she's been dreaming of writing forever. Except when she gets there, she finds out she is actually Juliet, and Romeo and Juliet have lived so many past lives across centuries. And the idea came from, I was thinking about what if Shakespeare got it wrong, and Romeo never died, but Juliet did, and she's reincarnated over and over again. And in every lifetime he finds her, they fall in love, but then he has to watch her die again. And so this story is mostly set in the modern day, but we have flashbacks to their past lives throughout history. We see Romeo and Juliet in Versailles. We see them at Pearl Harbor. We see actually the original Romeo and Juliet in Verona. And so it is, Publishers Weekly likened it to The Time Traveler's Wife and The 10,000 Doors of January. So if you like those kinds of books, this, I think, is going to be right up your alley.
Yes, I think that's a good comparison, and I really enjoyed this. So let's get into the characters a bit more. So, or Juliet, her name is Helen. She's 30-something. Like you said, she's going through a divorce, but she's also been passed over at work. She didn't get this promotion she was hoping for, and she just has a lot going on in her life. So before going to Alaska, tell us about Helen's backstory.
So she has been a journalist. She graduated number 2 in her class at graduate school in the journalism program of Northwestern University, and her then future husband was number 1. And so they were kind of the power couple. Everyone thought that they were going to be the it couple of journalism, the next generation of journalism. But she ends up putting her own career on the back burner for him, because every time an opportunity comes up, he's just a little bit more strong-willed. And so now fast forward, and she's 30, and she realizes this man has been cheating on her. His ambition has completely clouded any of his judgment. And she has become a shell of who she used to be. And so she finally catches him cheating, like in the act. There is no way he can talk his way out of this, although he tries, because of course he does. And she's like, I'm done. And so the other thing she's always done her entire life is that she's written short stories, and they're mostly meet cutes, but she's a historical fiction nerd, so they happen throughout history. So she has all these little historical vignettes, and she has always wanted to write a novel. So when she says, I am done with this marriage, I'm done with all of this nonsense, and she flees to Alaska because she figures, I'm going to isolate myself someplace where there's nothing else I can do. So a rental cabin in Alaska in the middle of January seems perfect because she's a Southern California girl who's used to sun. So snow is definitely not her thing. She figures she'll lock herself in this cabin and she'll write her novel. And in her gut, she feels like there is something that ties all of these little short stories, these little tiny happy romances together. She just has to figure out what it is and how to put it together into a single story. So that is Helene before she gets to Alaska and before she meets Sebastian, who turns out is actually immortal Romeo, but she doesn't know it yet.
Yes, she doesn't know it yet. And who would think Romeo, aka Sebastian in this case, turns out to be a local fisherman? Tell us about him.
Yes. So Romeo has suffered through much love, but also loss across centuries. And so this time, when he takes on a new identity, he has a theory that this curse between him and Juliet is his fault. So every time he comes into her life, that's when they fall in love, and then she dies. There's no Juliet that has ever lasted for longer than 2 years, and the shortest time was 2 days. And so he feels like if he can hide away from her in this remote part of Alaska, he'll never cross paths with whoever the new reincarnation of Juliet is, and then she can actually live a full and happy life without him dooming her. So he's hidden himself away in Alaska, thinking that the ratio of men to women here is much more skewed towards men. So it's very unlikely that this Juliet will come into his life. It's all locals. He knows them all. And he's a king crab fisherman, which if anyone has watched the reality show Dangerous Catch, you know it is a vicious life out on the freezing Alaskan seas trying to catch king crabs. And for him, this is partially because he can't die. And so he can do whatever he wants, but he also is so tortured by life that he is constantly taunting and courting death, just kind of hoping that maybe this torture of his life will end after centuries of watching his true love die over and over again.
All right, so I know this is a difficult question, but I'm really curious. Who was your favorite character to write or discover as you were going along? And it doesn't have to be Sebastian or Helen. It could be anyone, really.
So I have a lot of favorite characters in this book. And again, like you said, most authors don't like to choose, but I feel like in this one, for me, it was quite clear that it was Sebastian. And part of that is because this story is actually very personal to me. And it comes from the inspiration, and a sad inspiration, of my own love story and kind of the tragedy, but the deep love between my husband and I. My husband, Tom, very shortly after we were married, was diagnosed with an incurable lung disease, and his lungs quickly deteriorated, and it was basically terminal unless he could get a lung transplant. And so he was on life support on something called ECMO, which takes the blood out of your body, all of the blood out of your body, puts it through a machine and oxygenates it because your lungs don't work anymore, and then pumps the blood back into your body while he waited for a lung transplant. And you can't be on ECMO for forever, indefinitely, because your body starts to break down, different things happen. So we got a call that there was an organ match. We were very excited and also grateful for the donor and his family. But then when the surgical team went to see the lungs, they didn't think the quality was high enough. And so they passed them over. And so we had to wait longer in the hospital. And in the meantime, Tom is just getting weaker and weaker. And I had to accept the fact that maybe I was going to lose the love of my life. And for me, this was, I mean, it's incredible to meet someone that you feel like is your soulmate, and then to only have him for such a short time. We were very lucky that we did find another organ donor match, and that surgery went very well, and Tom is healthy now. But, you know, afterwards, the doctors, they told us that they really thought he probably only had 2 or 3 days left. And if he hadn't found a perfect match for his lungs, I would have lost him. So it was taking this experience and putting it into the characters in The Hundred Loves of Juliet that I think makes this story deeper than just a Romeo and Juliet retelling. And the reason I say Sebastian is my favorite character is because everything that Sebastian feels when he is afraid of losing Juliet, when he is madly in love with her in this moment, and he knows that he needs to love her now because their time is short, but then he's already grieving her anticipatorily, and he knows he shouldn't do that because she's still here. Those are all real thoughts and feelings and experiences that I went through during this experience I had with my husband. And so it was very cathartic for me. It was really my therapy to write Sebastian's character. And this was a process that my editor and I went through. When she got the manuscript, when my agent was pitching the manuscript to multiple publishing houses, there was interest from lots of different kinds of publishers because my agent had thought this book could go multiple ways. It could be a lighter romance, or it could be deeper, fiction that really kind of thinks about life and love and loss and these big universal questions. And so when this editor, Anne Grohl, reached out, she said, I love this story concept, but right now it's still a little bit too light for me. And I think it would be great if you just want to keep it light. But if you want to work with me, I want you to tap into the raw, vulnerable parts of you. And it's going to be difficult. But if you're up for that challenge, I think that we could make this story something really extraordinary. And I was completely on board. And she is thankfully the gentlest, most insightful guide. And without her, this book could not have been what it is, because I needed her to help me open up, because I had all of my walls up to guard my own feelings. So that's for me why Sebastian is my favorite. I mean, Helene is really the second because she's also part of me. She is an eternal optimist. And I think that I've talked about all this weighty stuff, but I want readers to know that this story is ultimately, it's so hopeful. It's full of optimism and belief in love and living in the present. And that's because that part of me is in Helene. And so she counterbalances Sebastian's melancholy. And that part of me in Helene is how Tom and I got through such a difficult period, is just belief in our love and that somehow we were going to make it through.
Wow, I have to say, just hearing your true story element of it is just incredibly inspiring. I'm so grateful and happy for you that you both made it through that. I can't even imagine how dark it must have felt when you were in it, but also to meet an agent and an editor who both believed in the story and pushed you, because I loved the balance between both characters in the book. Yeah, I thought it was beautiful. It was really wonderful. So to kind of get that backstory really has opened my mind on my initial thoughts, but it gives depth to the characters as well. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that if readers want to read it on a Romeo and Juliet, just enjoyable love story level, that works too. I recently reread the book before it came out because I finished the book almost 2 years ago, I think, at this point. And so I had to refresh myself right before I started doing all these podcasts and publicity. And I read it. And because now I am more distanced in time from my own personal experience and that pain and fear that we were going through when Tom was sick, I read the book in a different light this time. And it felt just lighter and enjoyable too. And so I really think that The Hundred Loves of Juliet can be both, depending on what you're in the mood for and what you decide to tap into emotionally for yourself.
Absolutely. But the one thing I will tell readers is it's incredibly hopeful. It was just a very heartfelt, heartwarming, hopeful story, no matter what you're going through. So I appreciated that as well. But also, I want us to talk about another book you have. It's a bit of a crossover. I initially was thinking, okay, yeah, this is YA, but I can see the crossover appeal 100%. And this book is entitled Damsel. So I also saw it's soon to be a Netflix film. So tell me about Damsel and also what the film adaptation experience has been like so far.
Damsel is a fantasy, so this comes from my background in writing lots of magic, very different from The Hundred Loves of Juliet. And like you said, it's crossover, so it's for YA readers and for adult readers. And it is about a woman who accepts a marriage proposal from someone who seems like a dream prince from a utopia. And she goes there and finds out that instead of having a happily ever after, she is actually going to be sacrificed to a dragon. Because unfortunately, this utopia, Aurea, only exists because they have to pacify a dragon by giving the dragon 3 gifts of royal blood every year. So the prince marries 3 women every single year. And once they become princesses and are royal, they are sacrificed to the dragon to appease the monster. And then there is peace and prosperity and bounty for this island kingdom. So that's the premise of Damsel. It is going to be a movie on Netflix starring Millie Bobby Brown, Angela Bassett, Robin Wright, Nick Robinson, and other amazing actors. And this was actually a collaboration between me and Netflix where they were already making the film. They were in early stages of making the film. They had a screenplay, and the filmmakers were huge book fans, and they wanted a book that could expand on the world, expand on the characters, possibly even do something slightly different from the movie, just because they understood that movies and books are 2 different forms of entertainment. And there are certain things you can do excellently on the screen in, 90 minutes, 120 minutes. And then other things you can do differently and better, perhaps, when you have 400 pages to work with. So that was a lot of fun. It was the wildest day when my agent sent me an email saying, hey, so Netflix just reached out and asked if you wanted to write a book for Millie Bobby Brown's next movie, but they know you're busy. So if you don't want to do it, it's okay. So I basically screamed and wrote back in all caps, OMG, yes, yes, yes. Like, it doesn't matter how busy I am doing this. And they were fantastic to work with. I got to go to London and be on the set for a day, and that was just an amazing experience. So yeah, if you're into fantasy, check out Damsel.
Woohoo! Of course. No, you're not busy. No, nothing else is going on. Nothing. That is so exciting. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I do want to ask though, so it was a screenplay first and then it became a novel?
Yes and no. So it was a screenplay first, but they were still revising the screenplay. So I had an early draft of the screenplay, and then I wrote the novel. My first draft was based on that screenplay. So the core story is the same, but then they were still revising the screenplay at the same time that I was writing the book and doing my own revisions. And so at some point, the stories began to diverge because they had to go and make the movie and I had to go and write the book. And so there is very, very much that is similar, and yet the 2 will also be completely different, which I think is perfect for the filmmakers, for Netflix's vision that these are 2 different forms of entertainment.
Absolutely, absolutely. They are completely separate. And as a reader, I've kind of had to come to terms with on screen, it won't be an accurate representation just because, like you said, there are things you can do in a book that you can't do on screen. So I can get more interior in the book and then the character just literally says 1 or 2 things, whereas on screen, we need them doing something. So yes, I agree. Completely 2 separate works. But also on that note, as in, you don't have enough going on. Are you working on any other projects, though? Any other books, screenplays, anything?
So I just turned in my next adult fiction, which will come out next year in 2024. So that is done and in copy edits. So it's mostly just going to be proofreading from here on out. And I can't say anything about it yet, except that it's very much in the same vein as The 100 Loves of Juliet in terms of feel and contemporary with just a little bit of the surreal. And I'm so excited about it. I know that my publisher is working on the cover art. And so, yeah, I will announce it soon, I think.
Okay, amazing. One question, though, I don't think this one will get you in too much trouble. Will we be seeing any characters from The 100 Loves of Juliet, or is it just a completely new cast, completely new everything?
It's completely new, totally standalone.
Okay, amazing. Okay, so now that you have your adult debut, The 100 Loves of Juliet, now out, you have your second book in the works. You also have the Damsel book, which is new for 23, but you've also written other young adult and crossover books, children books, and so on. If you could look back and tell your younger writing self anything, Evelyn, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that your career is much longer than you think it is, and that there will be ups and downs, and sometimes life will intervene, but it's okay because you are a storyteller. and the words will always be with you and they will come back to you. So even if you take a break, or even if you have a book come out that didn't quite turn out the way that you had envisioned it because of the editorial process, or because when the book came out, suddenly the market didn't want those kinds of books, it's all right. Because what matters is building a long career and a body of work, and that your writing career doesn't hinge on any one single story that you write.
Oh, I love that. I couldn't agree with that more. Absolutely. So I want to get into your reading life as well, because again, I know we're here to talk about your books, but we're readers and we just can't seem to get enough. So tell me about the last book or books you finished reading that you'd now recommend.
I'm so excited about this because I'm taking a sabbatical from writing because, as you mentioned, it's been a bonkers year for me with so many books coming out, and my TBR is growing and growing, and I'm so, so happy to finally have time to read all these amazing works. So one of the books that I read recently that I love is called No Two Persons by Erica Baumeister. She's also the author of The Scent Keeper, which I think many people read years ago. And this is a book for book lovers. It's about a debut author who writes a book and then it goes out into the world, and then it follows that book and how it impacts different readers in their lives. So in a way, it feels like short stories. In a way, it feels like short stories that are woven together very loosely, but they all kind of come together in the end. So this is a book to savor, No Two Persons. Savor it. Don't try to devour it all at once. I love it. It is for true, true bookworms.
Love it. What would you say was your favorite childhood book that you can remember?
So there's two. I loved Watership Down. And then when I started reading, my first adult book that I read as a child was A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. So both of those have this strong emotional imprint on me from my childhood. And I do think that A Farewell to Arms strongly impacted the kinds of love stories that I prefer in both my own writing and in my reading. These kinds of perfect soulmate, but bittersweet. They have major obstacles to get through, and it makes you sob. So that is my taste, I think, in love stories. And then Watership Down, I had actually forgotten about until recently. Someone brought it up. I was at a dinner and there were a bunch of people who just were talking about what their favorite books were from their childhood. And someone brought up Watership Down. And I thought, gosh, I need to reread that. I loved that book.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. I love revisiting books from my childhood that I absolutely loved as well. But I'm curious now, because you said the TBR is high. What books are you looking forward to reading in the year ahead?
So I have Diana Gabaldon's Go Tell the Bees That I'm Gone. I was slowly making my way through all the Outlander books, and now I have this one, and it's on my shelf. And I so desperately want to read it, but I also don't want to because then it's over and I have to wait for however many years it is for her to write the next one. Because up until now, I could read at my own pace. So that one I'm definitely looking forward to. Let's see. I also have The Wishing Game by Meg Schaffer. I just got that in the mail. So I am excited about that because I've seen it everywhere. And then I was at a little bookstore up by the Russian River recently in Guerneville. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name of the town. I'm sorry. And they had this cute little used book section. And so I found a book of short stories from Nabokov. And I was a Russian literature major in college. So I thought, yeah, I want to be a little bit literary. So I picked that up, and that I'm looking forward to that. I don't know if I can slot myself back into the university days with that level of intellect, but I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, yay. I love hearing that. So on the show, we have listeners who sometimes fall into reading slumps, or sometimes we'll have a new listener who says, well, I want to get back into reading, but I don't know how. Life is busy. Life is crazy. I have no time to read for pleasure. So I want to solicit you for some reading tips and some advice. So what advice would you give to someone who, one, wants to incorporate more reading into their lives or get back into the habit of reading after losing it, but also someone who's maybe going through a reading slump and they want to get back into reading too? What tips have worked for you?
I think that nowadays with social media, our brains are trained to be so distracted, and it's really hard to sit in a single space and not move, not pick up your phone, and let yourself be immersed in a story. And I feel like that is a problem that a lot of would-be readers have. They want to read, but it's difficult because we have been trained now not to be able to sit into a story. And so for me, I think setting aside a certain time to read. One of my best friends, she always reads for half an hour before bed. And that has the dual effect of keeping her away from her blue screen, right, which is bad for sleep, and allowing her to wind down. And that's just now her ritual. And I think having that, it's almost like having it on your to-do list at the end of the day is, now I will indulge in this time for me and let myself sink into a story and not pick up my phone, not have to check what's going on in the news. I think that's a helpful way to slip back into reading. And then I think the tip that works for both the people who want to get into reading again and those who are in a slump is choose something that you might think of as a guilty pleasure that is just pure fun. And maybe you're embarrassed to read it. Maybe it's a super spicy romance. You don't want people on the train to see the cover. Just put another cover on it. Pick up something that's going to be easy, pure pleasure for you to read. And I think that's a great way to get back into it. Like, don't guilt yourself into having to read what is on the bestseller list or what it seems like everyone else is reading or what is, intellectual, quote unquote, intellectual. Just have fun. Like, reading is supposed to be fun.
Yay, I love that. Just have fun. But also the tip to maybe cover your book covers just in case you're not ready yet. My mom used to have like brown wrapping paper and we used to wrap all our books from school. So that is still a habit for some books that I really love or that maybe get brutalized just by being in my bag and traveling around a lot. So I do wrap my books. So I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think if you're on the train and you're reading 50 Shades of Grey, you can wrap it in brown paper and put War and Peace on it.
I live. That is amazing. I love that idea. Okay, so on the show, we love indie bookstores here. So share with our listeners your favorite indie.
I'm so lucky. I live in the Bay Area in California, down on the peninsula, and there is literally an indie bookstore in every single one of our cities for a good stretch of highway. So I love Kepler's Books in Menlo Park. That is actually where my husband and I met on our very first date, and it's where he proposed. So Kepler's Books, Menlo Park, amazing. And then also Books Inc. has multiple stores in the Bay Area. I just did my launch party at Books Inc. in Palo Alto. Both of those stores have autographed copies of The 100 Loves of Juliet, so you can give them a call or put in an order online and just request an autographed copy, and they will get those out to you. They're amazing booksellers, wonderful local stores to support.
Yay! Thanks for sharing. Okay, getting back to your book, The 100 Loves of Juliet. Again, you've done your job, you've written a book, that's it, game over. But in an ideal world, what are you hoping readers might think or feel after turning the very last page?
I would love readers to walk away from this book believing in true love and believing that they deserve it. Because the main character, Helene, she has to leave a bad relationship. And part of that, as she's going through this book and reflecting on it, she realizes it's because she always put herself second. And she didn't think that she deserved a great epic love story. So I want people to believe that they deserve it and that there is love out there for them. It's not only in books and movies. It really exists. And I can tell you it does because I found my husband after we had both had many, many failed relationships. And we found each other, and we're not perfect for everybody. We have all sorts of weird quirks that other people would probably find horribly annoying, but we are perfect for each other. And so I want people to know that there is someone out there that is perfect for just them.
I love it because I feel the exact same way. Evelyn, thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking with me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Love this, Victoria. Thank you so much for inviting me. And thank you to all your listeners out there.
Yay. Thank you so much for listening to the Reader's Couch podcast. Please subscribe to the show, share it with a friend, and take a few seconds to leave a rating and review. Until next time, stay lounging, stay reading, and whenever you're in doubt, go straight to your local bookstore or library. Thanks again for listening, and happy reading.